In this episode, we're going to be talking about party and character creation. Hey folks, welcome back to our all-important series on the Session Zero.
Alright guys, you're almost done with your Session Zero. The last thing you need to do is party and character creation. Let's look at a couple tips and tricks that you can use as GMs to make the process run as smoothly as possible and also create the coolest party you can possibly come up with. If you do character co-creation, if you create your characters and your party together as part of a Session Zero, you're going to have a lot more opportunity as a GM to connect them and integrate them into your living and growing world that you've been writing. First part of character and party co-creation is actually creating the characters themselves. Here's where you as a group are going to have to make a decision. Do you want to roll or do you want to pick your stats? Talk with your players about which one you want to use because each one has pros and cons. There are many options like 3d6, 4d6, dropping the lowest number, point buy, standard array. There is even 3d6 in order, which is about as hardcore as you can get. No matter what you use, what system you pick, we recommend that you use the same one for every character. Additionally, if you are rolling stats, we recommend that you roll one set of stats for the entire table and allow all the characters to use that same array of stats. If you roll everything on an individual basis, then you're going to end up with the potential for some characters to be way more powerful than the others simply by stat. If you all roll together, you're guaranteeing that the party is going to be of the same approximate power level no matter what. Once you've all decided on character classes and races, the most basic parts of your character creation, take an hour and a half, as much time as you need to go through with each of your players, build out their characters. Be there for your players at the table while they're doing all of these things so that you can answer questions, especially if you have newer players, and you can help them create characters that reflect the party that they want to play.
So imagine if your world was really anti-magic. You might want to think about encouraging your players to maybe shy away from full casters, or at least have a way to hide their magic. Maybe they can work on puppetry or something like that, right? So they've got an outside skill that they're able to use to hide their hand movements or hide their mouthing gestures or whatever it is that's required to cast spells in your world. Let them think about, hey, what are we going to do to get around this kind of stuff?
And encourage your other players to help each other. Talk about what they're choosing. Ask questions. Get everybody involved and have them offer feedback or thoughts to each other as the characters are being created.
For me, I remember playing in a campaign that was very pro-human. And so as a character who was not a human, I think I was some sort of elemental creature, I really ended up running into mechanical things that really hindered my character and made him not a lot of fun to play. So if I feel like if our group had done a lot of good work ahead of time, I probably would have known that and would have built my character differently.
One of the most important questions that you as a table need to agree upon is whether or not characters are going to be able to be evil. And I don't mean evil as in they do some bad stuff or some questionable things here, or they chose to kill somebody instead of negotiate. Allowing evil characters is extremely difficult for newer GMs to deal with. This can cause a lot of inter-party tension. It can cause conflict. It can even lead to the party getting into combat amongst themselves. Figure out beforehand if you want to do this, if you want to offer this as an option. There are some people who enjoy doing this, but far and above, most players are not interested in playing games where some of their fellow players have evil or nefarious undertones or ulterior motives. If your party is not going to know each other before the campaign starts, then ensure you add a few basic questions here to give them the opportunity to understand where they are, why they're there, and why each other person is there. 1 to 2 sentences each about what motivated them or why or how they ended up in the place they are with the rest of the party for the start of the campaign. If the goal of your campaign from the start is that the party is going to be aware of each other, they've traveled together, they're from the same place, they have a shared backstory or some type of shared connections, then try using a methodology that we use in our Session Zeros, and that is called the X11. What the X11 is X number of strong connections, 1 weak connection, and 1 negative connection. And when we say that, we mean that if you have 4 players at your table, then each player should have 1 strong, 1 weak, and 1 negative connection across the party. If you have 6, then it should be 3, 1, and 1.
Think about that as like a vehicle with which your players are going to navigate your world. You want it to be cohesive and connected. You want your players and characters to feel like they've known one another, or at least have some connection with one another. That's going to change the way that the world responds to them.
As an additional way to get shyer or newer role players involved in the game and involved in this process, consider offering the party the option of having a shared backstory or a shared archetype. There are many systems where it's not that big a deal to offer one additional feat, or one additional language, or one additional ability. Creating a shared party experience or archetype, something that ties the group together from before the campaign, can be a really excellent way to get those of your players who are not that versed at roleplay or who aren't as sure how to involve themselves or how to frame their characters. This gives them an opportunity and a foundation to build upon. If your players decide that all of their characters are going to come from a shared place like a circus, then there are opportunities immediately for those players to use that as a springboard to tying in roleplay to the world. They can frame what they're seeing or doing or trying to convey to the rest of the party in circus terms or in experiences at the circus. And every player there will be able to play off of that in roleplay and improv. Getting players started in roleplay is the hardest part of tabletop gaming. Give everybody at the table an opportunity, if they want it, to have this shared archetype so that they can build off of it as a platform for roleplay moving forward. Once you've got some skeletons of characters, you've done their stats, their abilities, their classes, their races, a physical description, all of that, the most basic parts of it, now it's time to do the really, really cool part. And that is asking your players to tell the table a short narrative from their character's perspective. If you do have new players, if you've got shy role players, try a prompt. Easiest one: why did you begin adventuring? This could be anything. A short story of an event that happened, something that they feel, something their character would have done, why they are where they are right now. It could be pretty much anything. The goal of this is twofold. One, it gives your players an opportunity to start to test out personalities and voices and ways to portray their character. It also lets the rest of the party ask questions to that character and understand them a little bit more. This allows you to co-create your characters' backstories and ties them all together. You will find that parties that do this are much more likely to roleplay with each other, to be concerned about what happens to the other characters in the party, because they have a shared connection. A really cool thing that we use in our session zeros is what are called keys. Keys are aspects of a character's backstory or their concept or their narrative that are not fully fleshed out for the GM to be able to use in their world building. For every character's backstory, try to get your players to insert 2 to 3 NPCs that you want to be able to utilize later in the campaign. Major fears, things that have shaped the way the character has come about or why the character has become an adventurer. Try to figure out with your players if there are things that their characters are actually afraid of or worried about or preoccupied with. What are the things they focus on and their priorities? That will allow you to help design better adventures and hooks. If your party knows that it wants to be involved with a certain type of organization or a guild or a kingdom or any specific thing, it's okay for them to put it into their backstories without having to think all of the details through. Let them leave that to you. Have them just create it, because immediately, if they are creating the names and the connections, they're going to be more integrated and involved into your world. They're going to want to seek out and understand what happened to their parents. If they get a message from somebody that they have known in the past, they're going to be much more likely to seek out that person and follow that thread. Any types of mysteries. Lots of players love to have characters with a mystery. It's just a trope of tabletop role-playing games. Players love to have either a mystery or a hidden past or secret parts of their characters. You're never going to get away from it. So embrace it. Lean into it. Just have them give you 1 or 2 lines, a small hook. Use that in your world building to help engage with those characters. One other quick tip, try to stay away from alignment for now. Alignment is at the forefront of almost all character creations and game systems. For new players, the problem with alignment is it can box you into thinking about how to play your character or how to personify your character. Lawful good alignment immediately evokes different thoughts in people's heads about what that means. In reality, how you play a lawful good character can vary wildly. Let your players create their characters without the alignment, and then later, a couple sessions in, you can start to talk about, if your system requires it, what an alignment might look like for each player. Character co-creation leads to a more fun experience for your players. It leads to a better understanding of who is playing what and what their motivations are. It gives you as a GM a better opportunity to integrate those characters into the world, and it lets you understand how best to create hooks that your players are really going to be interested in pursuing. Use the thing your players create because they will be way more invested in it off the bat than things that you throw at them that you have to tell them they know about from their past.
I want you to remember that one of the core principles that we really abide by is to play what you love. All right, we want your characters, your players, the people at your table, including you, to feel like they can kind of reach out into the things that they really find exciting. So if you've set your world up to be super anti-halfling, and the entire party is like, we want to play a family of halflings on a journey across the country, then you might think, okay, well, let me shift some of that animosity to dwarves, and maybe throw a little less shade to your halflings. So just think about the ways that you might be able to make some small tweaks, keep really the core idea of what you want your world to be, but open it up so your players can really dig into what they love.
Don't forget to get notified when our videos come out by subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button.